I have been privileged to go to Alaska several times in my lifetime. This video is the first in a series on my trip to Alaska on Royal Caribbean's Quantum of the Seas, round trip out of Seattle. It is my goal to publish videos every 2 or 3 days highlighting the different ports on my trip. Come along with me on this journey. If you are new to my channel and you don't know me, I am Shirley with Shirley's Journeys, and I'm going to give you an overview of our trip to Alaska on Royal Caribbean's Quantum of the Seas today. Normally when I go on a cruise, I have a plan. I'm a planaholic. I have my maps in hand. I have my excursions planned. I know exactly what I'm going to do in every port so that I can make the absolute best use of my time in these locations. However, on this trip, I decided my plan was going to be not to make a plan, to find out just what can you do if you're in port and you don't really know what you're going to do. We will look together at the ports, maybe some of the mobility issues, what you could do without a plan if you just happen upon things. First, we're going to look at an overview of the itinerary, the ports that we are going to stop at, and then I'm going to talk a little more about Embarkation Day and what you can expect at Pier 91 in Seattle if you're going on the Quantum of the Seas or if you're porting out of Seattle at that pier anyway. All right, let's look at the itinerary a little bit. We start in Seattle, and I'll come back to the Embarkation Day later in the video with some of that process. Then we have a sea day. Now, a lot of people ask about going to Alaska to see the northern lights. Remember that you get half the year is dark and the other half is light. Most of the Alaska sailing season is done while you have light, and we were there just about when you had 24 hours of daylight in some of those more northern ports. So northern lights are not very likely when you've got daylight because you need dark. But the sea day is beautiful. Gorgeous views as you sail, especially at sunrise and sunsets, and seeing some of the coastal views. But we actually saw some northern lights right at my home in Tennessee. And that was pretty amazing because that's kind of unheard of. I also got this picture that looks like aliens, but it's actually my hand shaking while I held the camera and some street lights. Anyway, back to the trip. The first port is Sitka. The cruise pier is outside of downtown Sitka, and guests going to downtown can take a free shuttle to explore the downtown area. Our next port was supposed to be Skagway, but they've had rock slides in Skagway, and our cruise itinerary got changed. So if you go to Skagway, I usually recommend going the White Pass Railroad. It is a beautiful scenic rail tour, then maybe exploring the downtown area some after doing that. Our itinerary was changed to Icy Strait Point, and Icy Strait Point is a neat little port area that was built for the cruise business. There's a gondola ride and some other things that you can do, so I don't want to do a spoiler alert of all the things you can do, but you can watch for the next video on Icy Strait Point that will come out after Sitka. Our itinerary also included a scenic sailing through Endicott Arm and to see Dawes Glacier. Our sailing was very rainy and cloudy, and you really couldn't see as well as you can when the sun is out. But it still gives you that authentic Alaska experience because that is the weather quite often in Alaska. I still got some beautiful pictures of waterfalls and a zoomed in picture of the glacier. Juneau. This is the capital of Alaska and is almost on all itineraries sailing to Alaska. We have done excursions before that take you to Mendenhall Glacier, to the visitor center there, and where you can walk out and look at the glacier. We've also done Mount Roberts Tramway, which has now been renamed, but it can give you good views from the top of the mountain down to your ship when the weather's nice. But I didn't do any of that on this trip. Just what I did find in Juneau without a plan. Since our sailing left out of Seattle, then the Passenger Vessel Services Act requires that ships must port in a foreign port. So our foreign port was Victoria. We only had just a few hours, about 3 actually, that we could explore this port. So I knew there wasn't going to be a lot to do. We actually booked an excursion here because I had never been and I really wanted to be sure I could see as much as I could see in that very brief time in Victoria. As promised, I'm going to talk about embarkation in the Port of Seattle at Pier 91. But before I do, let me ask you to subscribe if you have not already. It helps me so much when you subscribe because that tells YouTube that people are interested in this kind of material. Doesn't cost you anything. It just puts my videos up in your feed where you find them a lot easier. So please subscribe. It helps me out and I appreciate it so much. And if you just want to like the video, or even unlike the video, at least YouTube knows people are watching. We arrived late the night before embarkation, and I always recommend that you fly in the day before because you never know with airline flight delays what's going to happen. We decided to stay at a hotel near the airport. There are several near the airport, and the Seattle Best Western SeaTac Airport does provide complimentary shuttles, as others do. They also have a breakfast, so it makes it really convenient. They don't have a shuttle from the hotel to the pier because it's a good little distance, but we booked with Seattle Express. They offer a shared shuttle from many of the airport hotels, and I will put their link in the description below for where you can find out more about Seattle Express. Here is an overview of the lot at the terminal for Pier 91. This little area here is where taxis drop off. If you are doing rideshare like an Uber or if someone's just bringing you to the port, you may be dropped off much further back, depending on how security is at the port that day. We heard some people say that Ubers are not allowed to drop you all the way at the terminal. We had someone else tell us they took an Uber and it dropped them right off. So I can't guarantee one way or the other for Ubers. If you're taking a cruise ship shuttle, those motor coaches will park right in here. Seattle Express shuttles get those last 2 or 3 parking places there. So it's a little bit of a walk to get from the shuttle drop-off to the terminal itself. There are porters stationed about midway in this particular covered area. If you forgot your luggage tags or you're going to check a bag that you did not remember to print a tag for, you can check with them to get some tags. It speeds up things if you have printed your cruise line luggage tags off of your eDocs early and have them already on your bag when you arrive. You'll find a porter, drop your bag with that porter, and head into the building. When you drop off your bags, double and triple check that you have not packed your boarding documents. You need your passport in hand. You need your cell phone with the boarding pass or your printed pass in hand. So be sure you have those documents on you. Don't check any valuables either. You would like to think that the world is a very, very, very trusting place, but we all know it's not. So keep all your cash with you, any jewelry you might be traveling with, anything valuable, a laptop. Make sure you have all that in your carry-on. Once inside, you'll go through security, you'll get all checked in, and you'll walk this ramp, kind of a sky bridge between the terminal and the ship. Now, if you've got mobility issues, let me warn you, it is going to be a good bit of a walk on embarkation day. There are a couple of different scooter rental companies. If you rent through Special Needs Group, the way they do it is have your scooter in your cabin so that when you get access to your cabin, you have access to the scooter. And if that's the case, you have mobility issues, I recommend that you request peer assistance in advance. Get your travel agent to request it. Call in to the cruise line and request it. They will sign you up for that. And as soon as you get up to the building, they have someone to meet you with a wheelchair, and they will assist you all the way through the embarkation process and onto the ship. Once you're on the ship, though, you're on your own to make your way up to your cabin or where you're going to wait until your cabins are ready. You cannot use their wheelchairs on board. That's strictly for the embarkation-debarkation process or for the medical center in an emergency. You can rent wheelchairs, but you cannot use their wheelchairs. There's another company, they have their scooter rental area set up right outside the terminal, and you can pick up your scooter right there and be able to use it yourself through the embarkation process. They're a little more expensive than Special Needs Group, but you might appreciate the convenience of doing it that way. We watched the safety video on our app, and we went to our muster station, which is the area on the ship that you would go to in the event of an emergency. Royal wants you to know for sure where you're supposed to go, where your muster station is. So make sure you do a good look around, get your bearings, and know what that station is. Then all you do pretty much is show up there and they check you off that you came. I have a separate video all about a ship tour. And that's what I usually do pretty soon after getting on board. Once the room is ready and I've unpacked my stuff, is go walk around and get oriented to the ship. If you want to see a full ship tour, be sure to check out this video and be on the lookout for Sitka, our first port of call.